Megan, and today I'm here to do a very exciting video. As some of you might know, I recently, at least a few months ago, watched and completed Gilmore Girls for the very first time, and a few days ago I discovered that there was actually a Gilmore Girls book tag. So here we are. If you didn't know, I absolutely love Gilmore Girls. I love books, so pretty much this is a rather exciting combination of my two loves into one video. And of course, leave the creator of this tag down below, but without further ado, let's just dive right in. The first question is Lorelai, and this is to name a character who has a witty or sarcastic sense of humor. With this, I'm gonna go with Meg from the Trials of Apollo series. She might be young, she's gone through a lot in life, but my god, can Meg think of the best comebacks to bring Apollo, the god, down to earth. Meg is my favorite character in this series. It's really hard to pick because I love so many characters in the Trials of Apollo, but specifically I just love her humor, I love her personality, and I love how she interacts with people around her. She is hilarious, and I think she's a perfect Lorelai. In fact, if I think Lorelai read this book and read about Meg, she would be very pleased with Meg. Next question is Rory, and you were supposed to name your favorite classic. So I'm going to avoid saying Jane Eyre because I feel like I regularly talk about Jane Eyre, and I'm going to go with one of my lesser talked about favorite classics, and that is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead. This is actually a play. It's an absurdist play, and it's absolutely hilarious. If you're familiar with Hamlet even a little bit, I think you would enjoy this story. It really takes the narrative of Hamlet, turns it on its head, and tells the story from the perspective of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern, Hamilton's two friends that kind of visit from out of town. This story is absurd, it's hilarious, and it really makes you think. It has some of my favorite lines of all time, without fail. It's an incredibly awesome story. I've yet to see it on stage, which I'm really bummed about, but hopefully that'll be rectified soon. It's a great book, and it's short because it's a play, so like it's a quick and easy thing to read through. Question is Luke, which is supposed to be a book that you secretly love but are afraid to admit. I honestly struggled with this question for so long. I think it's because I have a YouTube channel. I'm not really afraid to talk about books I love. I think perhaps there's one book that I recognize that it's not the best book. It's very problematic in a lot of ways, but I still really enjoy it. You know, it's like that moral conundrum. It's like a tennis court. I'm like, but it's so fun. I'm like, but it's problematic. But it's fun, but it's problematic. And that's probably gonna be the Bronze Horseman by Paulina Simons. This book has a lot of trope issues. It has a lot of character issues, but my god, I keep going back to it. But it really has a lot of issues, so just know that before you go into this, please. Next question is Lane, and this is to name a musical character. I have to go with Kavoth from The Name of the Wind. The guy's like a lute god. Like, he is like the best at playing in his world, basically. Like, people give him medals, people become quiet as he serenades crowds. The guy's a musical genius, which I feel like really adds an interesting layer to a magical genius as well. The next question is Dean, and this is supposed to name your first book love. I'm going way back with this, and it has to be either, I have to go with Edward Cullen, because like, hello, I loved Edward Cullen when I was like 11 years old. But then I also loved Jace from the Mortal Instruments series, because holy moly, he just seemed like such a dreamboat. They're both ridiculous now. Looking back on them, I'm like, they're ridiculous. But at the time, they were by far my first book loves. Edward Cullen, Jace, I loved them with all my little heart. The next one is Suki. Name a book that you devoured. I'm gonna go with the most recent book I devoured, and I read it in one day in like 4 hours, and that is Poison Study by Marie V. Snyder. I feel like you guys are probably tired of me talking about this, but I loved it. It was a great YA fantasy novel following our main character, Yelena, who is basically given clemency from prison if she becomes the king's food taster, which is a very dangerous job because poisons. She also discovers that she has some magical abilities. This book is great. I really, really loved it a lot. So yeah. This question is Jess, a book that you love that everyone hates. And I feel like hate is too strong of a word again for this particular author, but I'm a huge fan of Marcus Sedgwick's novels. Revolver and Midwinter Bloods are some of my favorite books that I've read, just generally in the YA genre. But for whatever reason, Goodreads does not tend to love Marcus Sedgwick's books as much as I do. They tend to have a very low rating, like in the low 3s, but I think his books are mesmerizing, dark, twisted, and very interesting and unique. And maybe that's why, because it's not a normal YA book, but I love his stories a lot, specifically Midwinter Blood. I mean, that book won the Prince Award. It's really, really good, so. The next question is Miss Patty, a book that was ruined by all the hype, and for this I'm gonna go with Red Queen. I don't know, going into this novel, people were like, it's amazing, it's like X-Men and fantasy, and when people say X-Men and fantasy, I'm gonna be like, this is the greatest book of all time. And I ended up reading it, and I was like, this is kind of like a lot of what I've already read, which was very disappointing for me, which is kind of a conventional story. I'm not saying it was bad by any means, but it wasn't necessarily something new, and I was very disappointed when I realized it wasn't X-Men and fantasy. Like, it kind of is, but like, it wasn't. Up is Emily Gilmore, my second favorite character, and this is to name your most expensive book, and I have to go with the Harry Potter illustrated editions. These things are expensive, but worth every single penny. I mean, there's literally full color illustrations amongst all of the pages. I mean, it makes sense that they're so expensive. They're also quite hefty in size. I love them, and I can't wait to have all of them. And the last question is Paris, name an uptight character. Now I'm gonna kind of rephrase this question a bit because Paris is like my favorite person on the show. I just think she's amazing. And I don't like the word uptight. Instead, I'm gonna say like intensely driven. Someone who is so intensely driven that it's like almost life or death for them. Paris is a successful woman and she will stop at nothing to get what she feels like she deserves or wants in her life. And honestly, I found that to be a little inspiring. So for this, I went with Manon from Throne of Glass. Manon is intense, you know what I mean? Like, she eats people sometimes, but you know, I feel like she's really going for what she wants though, and she'll stop at nothing to get it, and I respect that. And I like Manon as a character a lot. She's currently my favorite character within the Throne of Glass universe. And I feel like, you know, her and Paris would probably get along. I feel like Manon would ultimately, like, kill Paris because she would annoy her. But I think they would have a grudging respect for each other. You know what I mean? Hey guys, that is the Gilmore Girls book tag. I hope you enjoyed. I personally love Gilmore Girls and I was excited to do a tag inspired by it. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video and I'll see you soon with another video soon. Goodbye!